Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here sharing with you my experience and the experience of the bank in water and sanitation projects. It's going to be very hard to talk in 15 minutes, but I'll try my best. But we have the one-to-one sessions, so we can certainly talk in more detail any topic that you think is attractive for your companies. Also, thanks for the invitation, Mateo, Bernard, and certainly Camila for arranging all the trip and joining this beautiful city. I had the opportunity to go for a run this morning, and I appreciate all the beautifulness of the city and the hospitality of the people. So thanks for that. And a little funny story. When I was in the school, in engineering school, I had an Italian professor for infrastructure, and his typical tag phrase was, "If the design is not beautiful, it's not going to work." And I remember that very well, and it's true. And you probably will share with me that opinion. So I'll go very fast on this. You probably already knew about the bank through my colleague Juan, but I just want to tell you that the IADB group is very strong in Latin America because we cover Latin America and the Caribbean, and we are the main donor in water and sanitation in that territory, so it makes us very relevant in decision-making of governments. We work along the other development agencies that work in the region, like the World Bank and CAF. We do, of course, financing. We do a lot of technical cooperation, a lot of support, interchange of knowledge, and knowledge products, technical notes, which is experience that we get from our projects. Usually we have the language barrier because the majority of the documents are in English and our beneficiaries in the majority are Spanish speakers, so we really do an effort to have them available in Spanish. Our member countries are certainly Italy is part of the non-borrowing countries. They are an important part of the board, and as opposed to other developing countries, the non-borrowing countries have 51% of decision making, so it's a kind of a cooperative. I would like to describe the bank more as a cooperative than a bank itself. 2021 was a hard year for everyone in the world. That's why our financial products were higher than normal. We have $20 billion in loans. The private sector, we have an institution for private investment that is the IADB Invest. It's like the ISC in the World Bank, and we have as well our record for us in the region. And we have IADB Lab, which is an institution that brings financial products for the small and medium enterprise and for innovation. Again, we give a lot of priorities to some transversal lines, which are gender, climate change, and governance. In water and sanitation, it's very straightforward to include climate change, of course, because they are directly related to climate change. And gender, we have about 70% of our operations have directly some components in gender, and we really look after gender in terms of not only because, as you know, the beneficiaries in the rural sector are women because they are taking time to carry out all the water for the day, but also in decision making, it's very important to include our female colleagues inside the IADB and in our institutions, the beneficiaries. Now a little bit on what's happening in the region in the water sector. I will mix a little bit the topics because I don't have enough time, but wastewater treatment, of course, is in the world the critical part of the circular cycle. And in our part of the world, we had just 18% of the effluent being treated as opposed to the 60% in the developed world. And of course, we're very behind schedule with the sustainable development goals. We have just 65% of people with direct access to water, and just 22% adequate sanitation. We align with the human right to water and sanitation, as the World Bank, as all the banks are here, IADB and IADB. And doesn't mean the human right to water and sanitation doesn't mean that water should be free. If you read the document from the United Nations, it talks about affordability, it talks about access, it talks about quality. So what we mean with this is that we need to make sure that everyone will have the right access to water depending on their income and their location. Now I'm going to go to the water sector itself. We're going to go to water companies because, as you know, Latin America is very urbanized. We have about almost 90% of our population live in cities, so water companies are like the core business for the water sector in this region. And we have three main issues related to the inefficiency of the water sector and the gap in the water sector that is related to the commercial management of the clients, the tariff, the communications, and everything related to clients or users or beneficiaries, as whatever you want to call them. We have water losses, and water losses is not just leakage in the pipes. It's deeper than that. It includes as well illegal connections, includes poor commercial management, and energy efficiency. Of course, we have a lot of energy expenses in the water sector. Usually it's about 30% of the operational costs are coming from the energy bill. Non-revenue water, as we call the physical and commercial losses, are very high in the region. We have a few countries are under that average, and they are done some effort because it's kind of an art. If you want to reduce non-revenue water in a specific territory water company, it's not just fixing leaks. I'm going to go through this shortly, but you will see that it's a whole holistic approach. So I'm just going to take this example because it's one of the main problems in our region, non-revenue water. It's an environmental problem as well, because if you take more water from the aquifers, you're probably affecting climate change, you're probably affecting water for irrigation. So the less water you take from the aquifer, the more sustainable is your project. So it's not just a commercial or water quality problem, it's a very holistic problem. Water companies, they can approach the non-revenue water in many ways. Some water companies are very knowledgeable about that, and they can take a very in-house approach, as we call. The in-house approach will be just to strengthen all the skills that they have in order to reduce. They can hire a company to give them some plans to support in development strategies, or maybe they don't have enough skills and they will probably need someone with a different profile. Maybe they need to include some professionals working in the company. And little by little, you are increasing the kind of help you need, and finally you can hire a whole company to do the job for you, which is like a third party to do a performance-based contract, which is handing the whole non-revenue water development and reduction to a third party. This is more or less what we see in our countries. We don't support any one of those approaches because every country is very sovereign in decision making. They will decide what they prefer to have. Some countries are very keen on private sectors, and others prefer not to hire the private sector in a concession scheme. They prefer to have them as a contractor, but at the end it's private sector support, and that's what we are promoting. So that's more or less how it works. And in energy efficiency, energy efficiency, it's sometimes more straightforward because usually pumping equipment could be changed, replaced. But before you do all that, you need to go through an audit of your facilities. You need to understand very well how much you pay for the electricity, when you're pumping, you have enough water or not, which are people related to the managing of the electromechanical infrastructure, and then make decisions and see how can you change that, how can you replace that equipment and make it work in a better way. And that could be done with the support of the private sector as well. We are thinking about transferring the whole energy efficiency management and investment to a third party that, based on performance, they can share the savings with the water company. So what projects I want to show you here from the past? From the past, I want to show you the Bahamas non-revenue water contract that was financed by the bank. In the English-speaking Caribbean, usually there is this problem that you pay a lot for treating the water. Sometimes you pay up to $3 a cubic meter to treat the water, and then half of that water will be lost in the pipeline, or will be lost in commercial losses. So it's critical to improve that. So our contract in Bahamas was devoted to reduce leaks, was devoted to change the water meters, to improve the management of the network, and it cost $83 million, and it took 5 years, and it was very successful because they put the whole management of the non-revenue water investment to one company, an Israeli company called Omia. And it was also supported with a communication campaign. As you know, if no communication is done with the users, there's no way you can make them more responsible, make them more responsive to pay the bill, etc. We made the same in Jamaica, but this time was different. I was telling you that some companies are more sophisticated, they are more skillful. Jamaica Water Company, NWC, is very skillful. They have their own tariff scheme. They have very skillful employees, so they prefer to have a management contract. They didn't say to me at the same company, manage the whole package. They say, you manage our budget, but we will be responsible for managing that budget. And that's a potential scheme as well. Talking about technology, as you know, the gap for the SDGs is huge. So we need to do a lot of things differently, and one way to do things differently is to use high technology to innovate. And we're doing a lot of leak detection with satellite systems. We have very successful pilots in Argentina. We have one in Trinidad and Tobago, I'm not mentioning there, but there was one, and in Mexico, in the north of Mexico, where they used to have a scarcity of water. And with those methods, you're able to focus your leak detection and your leak repair in a much better way. In Peru, we use a lot of, as you know, a lot of intelligence systems are used to analyze the network, and one of those are the ones that we use in Celapal in Peru, Lima, that consisted in putting some devices on the network and understand and predict the eventuality of lack of water, of poor quality of water, and react in a better way, bringing more savings to the water company. And in Colombia, we have this classic problem in Latin America you probably are familiar with. Wastewater treatment works are very sensible to changes in loads, organic loads, and sometimes in the industrial sector we have discharges that are not fulfilling the wastewater quality standards, so they ring the whole treatment. So the problem in Colombia was that they didn't know where the shots were coming, the shocks, and they hired this company to put the sensors and to monitor the wastewater system, and they were able to detect that and take measures on those. And what's happening, and this is very quick, and I'm going to be very happy to give you details on what's coming next on our pipeline. We have some recently approved projects that are from these countries. The majority of them are related to improve the water quality and improve the water network. And we have some few examples here that I won't go into details because I won't have the time. But we have in Argentina, in Brazil, and in Salvador, projects that include improvement of water treatment works, improvement of network. We have one in Mexico, which is very unique. I'm based in Mexico. I know a lot of details of this project, but what is getting more fashionable now, because we don't have enough resources to solve the problems in the world, basically, our projects are more devoted to improve efficiency in water companies. And using these three lines of thought, energy efficiency, leakage repair or non-revenue water improvement, and commercial management, we think that it gives a lot of impact. So this project in Mexico with $100 million in a country where you have more than 200 water companies covering half of the country, it will have more impact than building a wastewater treatment works or improving or building a massive infrastructure. So that's more or less the cardinal thought in this moment. Just to tell you about procurement, and all my colleagues here being strengthening that aspect, our procurement policies are standard. Our beneficiaries are the ones having the reins to do the whole process, but they use our policies, so we're responsible to supervise all the procurement exercise. In general, they are based on quality and price, and so everyone will compete with fulfilling the technical requirements for that specific works, and if they fulfill, then the economic offer is considered to be open. And that's it for the moment. I wish I'd been complete enough, but there are many, many things, circular economy, transparency, a lot of things that you can include in the water sector. It's a very complex sector, of course, so you're very welcome for having questions now and tomorrow in the one-to-one. Thank you.
Thank you.